Well, I just got out of seeing Captain Kirk and the Temple of Doom. He he goes to a planet to save all the slave children that are mining for minerals. And Momra's played by Idris Elba. Oh my god, I wish it was that version. Yep, it's Star Trek Beyond. So this is the third one of the reboots. Oh my god, I wish someone would make that happen. Instead of Kate Capshaw, it would be Rose McGowan in the role there. No, they can't do that. Probably be Zoe Slander, unfortunately. Because it's Star Trek. It's funny because earlier in the day I was watching a couple of old episodes, get myself like hyped and pumped for this one. Just get an idea of what to expect. Because the previous two movies were pretty... Well, the previous two movies in the reboot, I didn't see a lot of the original Star Trek films, aside from the motion picture, which nearly bored me to tears, and I was like a teenager. That was the... And then again, it was meant to be like that. It was a slow-moving 2001 experience kind of movie. But when it came to the new generation movies, I only saw Final Contact, and that was fun. I love that one. I really like the Borgs and all that sort of stuff. The idea of Patrick Stewart in a crisis identity, the whole Moby Dick elements, which come into really good play. The farmer from Babe who invents, like, warp speed and makes contact with Vulcans. I'm just laughing my head off thinking about this. That was a fun one. But last year, or actually no, it really was last year, I started watching some of the original Star Trek movies. Wrath of Khan, which I finally got around to, and it was Wrath of Khan, which I finally got around to seeing last year, and it was amazing. Then came Searcher Spock, which was okay, but bizarre in spots. Voyage Home was fun. Not great. I can see why people really like that one. But it was fun. Fifth one was a train wreck. It was like a big WTF. We are going to search for God. Okay. Sixth one was a nice return to the classic films. It was directed by Nicholas Meyer, who did Wrath of Khan. That was very nice. I liked the whole Cold War aspect with the Klingons and stuff. It was nice to see the whole crew back together. So with that said, when it came to the reboots and thinking about them now and how they are, I believe J.J. Abrams was more invested in recapturing what made the original series great. And as I stated before earlier, I saw a couple of old episodes to get my, interest and all that stuff. And the episodes were Arena, The Trouble with Tribbles, which is a really, it's a fun one. It's a really fun one. The Devil in the Dark. And I have to be honest and say, looking back upon the original series, there was a sense of camp, but it did it in an interesting aspect. It was trying to be very serious with its material. It knew that it had to work with what it got. It was pretty much our Doctor Who. It was pretty much our Doctor Who, only set in the future. We were visiting alien worlds, trying to make intergalactic peace and stuff like that. So I feel that going into these reboots and thinking about how they are now, I can see in the previous two, J.J. Abrams was trying to recapture that feel, but more with the feature films. And those movies, Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness, did retain some of that. The idea of, intergalactic exploration, going out and seeing new worlds. And a little of that is there, despite the fact that it has to be a big adventure trek. So, going into this entry completely, blind as ever, I was thinking, alright, so we got a script by Simon Pegg. We got it being directed by Justin Lin of the Fast and Furious movies. It seems like the ingredients into this film could be either disastrous or not good. And I can happily say this entry did satisfy a lot of tastes. But the problem with this one is that you got a lot of crap to sit through. The first, and I'm trying not to spoil as much as I can here because I don't want to ruin this for anyone who's looking for a good summer movie. Trust me, I've been on the binge for a good summer movie. I don't want to stop and say Disney made a great summer movie, so they get the torch. No, I want this to go to someone else. But with Star Trek Beyond, the beats were there, the fun was there, the adventure was there, the action was there, the comedy was hit and miss. Some of the storylines didn't really mesh together, but it's an entry I can definitely say where, even though it starts weak, it does gradually get better. And like I said, there's good stuff in here. There's some really good stuff in here, but you got some bullshit to sit through. So, to compare, in the first movie, we had in the first Star Trek, not motion picture, J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. In the first Star Trek reboot, we have this grand adventurous scene showing exactly the whole tone of the film, with Captain Kirk's dad, saving the crew that he has and setting up the whole plot with the Romulans. That I always regard that as like a really fun scene. I always regard that as like a really great start to the whole reboot phase of those films, just showing that it's going to be action adventurous, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be very exploration heavy and such. It's not like Star Wars where they're going from one planet to another. There's at least action going on, there's espionage, all that sort of stuff. Second one, still keeping that tone. Into Darkness starts off with that whole thing on the planet, trying to save it and stuff. Again, trying to show the whole tone of self-sacrifice and all that. Which in hindsight, Into Darkness, not a good entry, not a bad one. Thinking back to it now, I can definitely see what the faults were. It definitely was trying to live up to the fans way too much. And after seeing Wrath of Khan, yeah, I can see why Into Darkness is not regarded as being a good entry by Star Trek fans. And I agree, there are problems. It does retread way too much in spots. And like I said, after watching Wrath of Khan, which I wish I did as a teenager, I would have loved it as a teen, actually. If I saw Wrath of Khan in my teenager days, I would have loved it. I would have immediately said, yes, I want to see more Star Trek sequels. I want to explore more into the franchise. But I think what killed it was the first one, the motion picture. No offense. But no, Into Darkness, I can definitely see what the problems were. I still like the action. I still like Benedict Cumberbatch's Khan. He had some really great stuff in there. But on the whole, I can sort of see why fans don't like that one. I agree, there are some problems in spots, especially Spock going all Bourne Ultimatum and chasing after him in the end. It's like, it's a nice action set piece to a climax, but yeah, it's just really weird with Spock the more I think about it. Because in the first movie, you already had that big outburst when, Spock takes command of the ship, and he's arguing with Kirk about who wants to control the ship and everything. But anyway, jumping back to the third one, the first two reboots had like some really great openings. What does this one have? Kirk tries to make peace with these little tiny aliens, and they try and attack him, and he goes off. And that's it. that's legitimately the opening to this third movie. I guess they were trying to open it on like a comedic note, but it just didn't work. It was way too campy, I'm sorry. And again, I'm not trying to ruin too much of this film. But the problem is that it's Star Trek. And yeah, Star Trek does have campy moments. Trouble with Tribbles, for example. The fact these little tiny fluff balls keep multiplying and eating up like the whole crew supply and stuff like that. But it works to its advantage because there's a reason for the Tribbles. There's a reason for them to be there, even though they're cutesy, cuddly, and belong on something like Lost in Space, because they do add on to the tension of the episode, where they're trying to deal with the problems of what's going on in the space station they're visiting and all that stuff. So, something that campy works well in the episode, but for something like this movie, it really feels tagged on. And that's pretty much a sign of the comedy in this movie. Sometimes it can be funny when you have two characters bantering against each other, in this case, Spock and McCoy, but then it can be very, very hit and miss. Like, they have a couple of good moments here and there, but then once in a while it's like, odd couple kind of stuff, get it, because McCoy doesn't like Spock, It can be funny once in a while, but most of the time it's not that funny. But when it comes to, like, being, like, fun and adventurous, that is when it works. There's some really good action sequences. There's the bit where they're going to this planet to save some people. Again, this is a bit of a plot point, I'm not trying to ruin too much. And then when they meet the villain for the first time, and this giant army that comes out like a swarm of bees, just literally attacking the Enterprise, that is such a really well done sequence. Aside from at one point where you go inside the ship and they're invading and stuff, it's a little dark and there's like reds and stuff, because of course it's on alert and all that, and the camera kind of shakes a bit, and even in scenes where it's not supposed to shake, for some weird reason it jitters. It's really weird, and I don't know if it was me that caught on to this, but this and at least another action sequence really felt like it didn't really need to be like shot in handheld. Like, I get the coolness of it. You're up there in the action, you get to be part of the action and stuff. Shoot an action sequence, for crying out loud. I'm a little tired of that cliche, the whole handy cam kind of thing. I don't know if it's because Justin Lin is so used to, like, doing high-octane kind of action stuff, like, for example, Fast and Furious. Because that style kind of works. It's supposed to be, like, extreme and intense, because it's car racing. And I feel like at times he's trying to shoot it almost like a car race for some weird reason. There's another battle sequence near the end where Kirk is on a motorcycle and they're trying to fight off these aliens and stuff. And in a weird way, it does feel like he's trying to shoot a Fast and Furious movie, even though it has, like, the script of a Star Trek film, which is really weird. Because there are points we can tell where it transitions between those two mediums. 1 minute they're talking logically and stuff. That's like the Simon Pegg material, and it does feel like a Star Trek movie. But when you jump into the action sequences and the fighting and all that, it really feels like a Fast and Furious kind of movie. And these are like really two different tones. Because with Star Trek, it's all about exploration and peace and all that. And yeah, there's action in Star Trek. There is action. But these action sequences felt more along the lines of, like, Nemesis, which I don't hate. I like Nemesis. I don't think it's a terrible sequel by any means. Does it have problems? Yeah. But there are some good things to it. The idea that Captain Picard could have been this whole different thing, and there are some action scenes I do like, even though they're way too extreme. Where we're talking about a sequence where the Enterprise is crashing into another ship. And then you have Data doing like this whole giant leap of faith into the other one. Even though they did it much earlier, and it's like they're on a desert planet or something, and they have to drive this little car or cart or whatever into another ship. It's like they do it so many times. I felt like they were trying to do that. Like, they're trying to up the ante on the action sequences. And to the film's credit, like I said, the action scenes do get better. There's this whole finale, which is pretty nice, where they're trying to save, like, this giant space station, which at first looks like, which I will admit, the reveal of this is actually pretty clever. When we see this space station for the first time earlier in the movie, it looks like a generic space station. But when we zoom in closer and see what's on the rails and stuff, it's one giant Earth. Like, there's, like, buildings and stuff on, like, the railings and all that. It looks like a giant utopia community. That was awesome. I admit, there's some stuff in here that's, like, really awesome in the concept design. Like, this giant space station is really just, you know, Earth and stuff, but on, like, this giant metal frame and all that, so everything's upside down and topsy-turvy. It's like it was a whole world designed by MC Escher. That's, like, really amazing. When they go to this planet, it looks kind of interesting. It's a little Diet Coke Avatar. Like, it's a jungly kind of forest, all these different rocks, minerals. Like, one part of it is a forest, and the other half's like, desolate boulder kind of thing. But it looks kind of nice. That's something that Star Trek would do. Star Trek has done, like, desolate planets and, like, ruins and all that, so it fits in with the universe. It's cool. The story is kind of there. It's one of those that where it starts off generic and simple, but like I said, it keeps building and building and building. So at least I'll give the story a little bit of a pass, because everything gets real in that third act, but it almost makes me wonder what it would have been like if they actually did make some reveals earlier in the movie. Like, maybe at a certain midpoint they realize this and this and this and this, and then it adds on to the bigness. It's trying to do like this whole big shock value at the end where it's like, oh, it wasn't about, this. It was really about this. And it's mostly surrounding the Idris Elba, God, I hope I pronounced his name right, the villain Krall, K-R-A-L-L, not Kroll, Krall, where apparently apparently his whole plan is to fight back at the Federation for something they did. And without giving too much away, because actually it's a really nice twist, he really wants to destroy the Federation for a lot of damage that has happened. It's a little Wrath of Connie, but it works. It works in its favor for what the film is trying to do. He's not quintessentially a terrorist that's going in and trying to, like, destroy the whole thing just for the sake of it. It's more like, no, it's a revenge ploy. And it works. It really does work, even if the motivation gets revealed way too late in the movie. The beat and where it's placed, it still works. He's a little uninteresting at first. I mean, I do like the design. I like how it's, like, very, I don't want to say Klingon-ish, but it definitely looks like a very decayed kind of person look in a sense, without, spoiling too much. There's not too much from him, though. That is one problem I do have. There's not really too much from him. And the only times you see him is when he's captured, like, the crew and everything, and when he's sort of in these big action battle set pieces and all that. And even though he does capture, like, crew members and stuff, there's really no sense of what he really does with them. He just sort of captures them, and that's really about it. Okay, there is a sense of ambiguity as what he does to them. But, again, I don't want to ruin it for those wanting to see this movie. But in a sense, I kind of wish there was a little more clarity in certain spots. It feels like there's, like, a couple of bits of scenes missing here and there, or maybe there was actually more of this villain, but they said, no, we got to focus on ABC here. We got, like, Kirk and Chekhov on one side of the planet. We got Spock and McCoy on one side of the planet. We got Scotty meeting up with this alien, who's actually a really cool alien. So with all these different plots going on, it's like, yeah, the focus is really juggling itself around. It wasn't problematic like Warcraft, I'll give it that much. It knew when to go from A, B, C, D, but at the same time it's like, yeah, our heroes are important too, but so is our villain. And when you don't really have much focus of a villain on there, it's really going to be very diminishing, because you're looking at this character and thinking to yourself, okay, he's supposed to be threatening, he's supposed to be menacing, and he does on the last half. He does become very menacing, very threatening, but it kind of makes you wonder if they should have had, like, a little more played around and stuff, because the movie literally jumps into the whole problem. The Enterprise crew is called to save this rescue mission that is stranded on a planet. Excuse me. And they realize that it's actually a trap. And the villain, Krall, takes all the Enterprise crew, and as I said before, those characters are pretty much stranded on the planet trying to figure out what to do, how to rescue the folks, save the day, usual kind of gist. It's pretty much a classic Star Trek episode, expanded to like 2 hours, but it's done fairly. I can't say I wasn't bored. There were definitely some things here I did like about it. The production design and all, the action scenes, even though the choreography and the cinematography behind them were actually really questionable. Especially those zoom-in kind of things. Like, why would you even do that? Why would you just zoom in on an action sequence? It's fine just placing the camera right here and getting the action as it is. Like, if you're going to do a close-up, do it for an impact. Don't have the whole close-up be surrounded in the action scene. As I was going to say earlier also, I like the character, Jala. I think, Jala? I hope that's how I pronounce her name. The white girl with, like, the black markings and stuff. She was very badass. She reminded me of Krista from, the updated Land of the Lost, series. I thought she was actually kind of fun. The fact that she has, like, this whole spaceship as one big house and is slowly repairing it, and has, like, a whole knowledge of the planet, has all these traps and stuff. But in a way, it's like, I wish there was a little more of that. I like the sense of the character, and it's a shame because I like characters like that. I like characters that are left behind in this harsh environment, and yet made a whole world out of it. Like, it's their own kind of pride and joy, even though they know there's limitations. I like things like that. It's like Tarzan. He's with these apes. He made this whole world with apes, and the apes accept him as one of him, and he has, like, this tree house. No. Swiss Family Robinson. That's what I'm thinking. Not Tarzan. Swiss Family Robinson. The fact that they're on this island, they make it a home for themselves. They know the limitations and have all these gadgets and stuff. I love stuff like that. I really do. In a sense, I wish there was more of this character because I love the look of this. It's something you can easily find at a Comic-Con convention. Yeah, you could probably easily do something like that, but it was a cool character. She had stuff to do. Even though it's a little questionable considering how she's supposed to be, like, a sexual tension for Scotty. Which is even more questioning considering Simon Pegg penned the script. Oh, I gotta have something for Scotty here. Oh, no, just have, like, a little love interest with an alien. I mean, after all, someone's gotta have someone to schmooze over with. There are certain things that do feel very tagged on. And without giving too much away, considering how Leonard Nimoy sadly passed away last year, God bless his heart, live long and prosper, man, the way they shoehorn that in, and the keyword is shoehorn, it does feel tagged on. The way they deal with old Spock in this new entry is a nice send-off in the last half of the film, but earlier on they do this thing with it which feels a little tagged on, like addressing that, okay, we can't have Leonard Nimoy, so we gotta have an excuse to write his character out. Okay, we'll just do this. I felt if they just cut that scene out earlier in the movie addressing old Spock's absence, which again, I'm trying not to spoil as much of this movie as I can here, and I'll explain why in a second. The way they address the absence of old Spock, or as they say in this version, Ambassador Spock, it really felt like it was tagged on. Like, you don't need that. You could have just had that little ending, that little bit near the end, where new Spock comes across old Spock stuff, and it would have been fine. It would have been a perfect send-off. It would have been a perfect tribute. You don't need to address why he's not in this third movie. It would have been okay. But no, aside from those flaws, and aside from what it is, I can safely say it's a good entry. It's not terrible, it's not the worst, but for what it is and everything going for it, and considering the summer I had, it's at least worth seeing in theaters if you love the Star Trek reboots, if you really like the direction they're going into. This is definitely recommended. Is it perfect? Like I said, no. It's got problems. The pacing is, like, a little fast in spots. There's not really too much of a break, and the action sequences could have been better done. Some of the characters could have been fleshed out a little better here and there. But, you know what? At the end of the day, they just want to make a fun movie, and that's what they did. There's some nice concepts. There's some nice ideas. And for what it is, considering how J.J. Abrams jumped onto Star Wars and handed this over to these two guys, hey, it was good effort. And coming off of last week's movie, I'm in desperation for a good summer flick, and it's not a great summer flick, but at least it's popcorn entertainment I can sit through and be okay with. Not underwhelming, not the worst, not the best Star Trek entry, but it's welcome. And like I said, even though there's a couple of weak spots here and there that I can easily point out, it's one I can definitely say, it's worth checking out. I wouldn't put it close to, like, Wrath of Khan or Undiscovered Country. I'd probably put it closer to, like, maybe Generations or Voyage Home. Maybe behind Voyage Home, because there are some campy moments in Voyage Home, but the time travel aspect works a bit. But yeah, that's all I got to say for it. Other than that, really, this has just been a pretty good week so far. Couple of cases of Ecto Cooler from a good friend of mine, even though I can't get any around here. Stranger Things on Netflix, which I saw all 8 episodes of. Kicked ass. Seriously, go watch Stranger Things. It's amazing. No. If you have Netflix, watch Stranger Things, and then go see Star Trek Beyond. That will really make your week perfect. But if you don't have Netflix, go see Star Trek Beyond. Because at least I can easily recommend it off the fly and say, if you want good popcorn entertainment, go see it. Like, if you like the Fast and Furious movies, you'll be fine. The same pacing is applied here. Even though there's, like, science fiction kind of stuff. The only thing missing is fast-paced cars and Vin Diesel. Actually, that would have been interesting if he was in this movie. The Vulcan kept me out of prison. No, wait, let me change that a little. Why'd you bring the Klingon? The Klingon kept me out of prison. Alright, I don't really have much else for Star Trek Beyond. It is what it is. Like I said, it's got stupid moments. But you know what? It delivers. It legitimately does get better as it goes along. Does it meander too much? Yeah. Is it hit and miss with a comedy? Yeah. Could the action scenes been covered better? Yeah, but you know what? It does get better. It builds to a finale that does work. Even though a small portion of it is stupid, I will admit. Without ruining too much. What saves the day is so stupid, yet it leads to a really fun sequence. Then at the same time, it's like, okay, this is really dumb, but you know what? Just for the execution alone, 1,000 Whose Line points to you, man. Don't know for what it is. Those are my 2 cents. And until then, see you around. Live long and prosper indeed.